welcome to lovecastthepodcast reviews. I'm your host Alexa, and with me are my fellow hosts Pixie and Kayla.
Hey.
So this month we've got a review of Young Royals for you guys, both seasons 1 and 2 of the Swedish Netflix original. Young Royals tells the story of the Prince of Sweden, Wilhelm, who gets sent away to a boarding school because of some problematic behavior that he's exhibiting in his normal life. And there he meets the student Simon, who he becomes infatuated with, and they kind of develop feelings for each other. But Wilhelm's kind of caught up in his responsibilities of being the prince and eventually the crown prince, and that kind of impacts their relationship, which flows into season 2, where they're kind of picking right up in the aftermath of season 1, how that ended with their relationship and kind of bringing them back together. Well, spoiler alert, Wilhelm navigating that he is now the crown prince of Sweden and is set to take the throne as opposed to just being one of the princes. So yeah, it's kind of generally just a show about Wilhelm discovering his queer identity while also working through the pressures of being Swedish
Having
royalty.
a very public life.
Yeah, a public figure, and how that impacts his relationship and his ability to pursue the person that he loves. So yeah, currently 12 episodes across 2 seasons, 6 episodes each, available on Netflix, and there is going to be a third and final season that is currently in production, which I assume will probably be out early next year, maybe late 2023. So we'll kind of get to see their story wrap up that way. But yeah, so Young Royals.
Can I ask, did you guys watch it with the dub or did you watch it with the Swedish?
I watched it with the Swedish.
Never the dub. Never dub for anything.
Thank you.
I
I did hear that they
did the dub themselves.
actors dubbed their own,
which I think
stuff.
would help, but yeah, I watched it with the subs, so
yeah, I did like watch a clip from the dub, and I'm just like, oh, no.
I feel like it's so just like, even though it's them, it just like wouldn't feel right, especially after you've already watched it in the original Swedish.
Yeah. No, but the issue with it is like it's very Scandinavian everything, and then you put in the English, and it's just like something doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Young Royals, I mean, I think I was pretty late to the first season. I ended up like binging it all randomly one afternoon. I think after we had started like getting to know Paris, because she loves Young Royals and she was raving about it constantly, and so rightfully so, and so I decided to binge it, and I just like watched all 6 episodes in one afternoon, and it was just like
Same.
I immediately understood her feelings about it. It's such like an intense show. And I think it kind of speaks like the way it's filmed is very Scandinavian, like Pixie was mentioning. And I think that kind of like heightens all of the emotions and like the realism aspect of it, which just like made it felt like something very different to watch at the time, I guess. And so I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I kind of, you get the same vibes of it like you did with Skam, the Norwegian season BL. It's not actually like queer media. And I think it's very Scandinavian. And I hope that the Hollywood doesn't see the popularity and try to remake it, because it's going to be a train wreck, and we don't need to see that.
It's like when America tried to remake like Skins and stuff like that. I think they've even done like a Western version of Scam, and it just doesn't work.
It doesn't work at all. They also did like the girl with the dragon tattoo and made that into like a Hollywood version, and it's so bad.
Yeah,
doesn't work.
Not everything needs to be remade.
No,
you know.
Yeah.
Just watch the Swedish
watch
or
the
Norwegian version.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It would be
kinda
weird to try to do an American version of Young Royals because we don't have royalty here.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, listen, we're gonna have that red, white, and royal blue movie. That can be that can be the American Young Royals. It has royalty and it has the person who's like the son of the president. It works.
There we
Yeah,
go.
exactly. We're getting that
Back
as a
to
movie,
young
so.
royals. Do you think the prince is sort of like Wilhelm is sort of modeled after the UK prince? What's his name again? He's married
Which one?
to the American actress.
Harry is the one
Harry.
who's married
Yeah.
to the American actress. I don't know.
I don't
I don't know enough about royalty.
Because
Okay.
I'm
know a
saying
little
this
bit.
because Scandinavian royalty usually behaves impeccably. Like there's nothing going there. They're very aware that they're like public figures, and that's the only thing they are. They don't have any power. They're just like for the public to watch. And there's not been a scandal in forever.
If anything, I feel like Young Royals shows at times like how the media and specifically tabloids treat royalty, with just like them making all of Wilhelm's problems into gossip. So I think that could be influential, but I don't know if he's based on Harry specifically.
Yeah. That's like just a thought that I had, like knowing how the media and how the royals usually act in Scandinavia or in Sweden and Norway. That's just what hit me because they needed some drama. They actually have to, yeah. I don't know what it was inspired by.
Heather's coming through.
Heather's
The Virgin
here.
Suicides, I love
The
that
Virgin
movie.
Suicides in Euphoria. What a combination of
Wow.
shows
That
to
is
take
a
inspiration from.
combination. Well, that actually
The
makes sort
Virgin
of
Suicides
sense.
is interesting.
The teenage and naive innocence
innocent.
met with the challenging themes the film explored were perfect context for the series. Yeah.
Wow.
It's an interesting thing. Like Young Royals, we don't really have any stories like that. Especially coming from Scandinavia, there's not a lot of like actual good queer media. Not a lot of good media at all. But when they do hit the spot, it's really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting like plot basis, the idea of being queer as a royal figure when there's so much emphasis on like continuing the bloodline and not doing anything that could smear that reputation that you have, and like how the idea of being queer is as what's the phrase I'm looking for? Like, I think, I can't say for sure, but I think in general, Scandinavian countries are generally seen as being more accepting of LGBTQ plus people overall. Like, they have that image, at least coming from like an American perspective. So that idea of like being in a country where generally the community is seen as being accepted, but how is that viewed when someone in the royal family happens to be queer? And like especially with like Wilhelm's mom, her whole shtick is that like, oh, I don't care that you're queer,
Don't care
but
you're gay, just don't be gay
can't-
in public.
exactly. So like that whole kind of like plot point and character arc for Wilhelm, I think is a very interesting story to explore. And I think it's not something that's had been done before, which is probably why Young Royals had such an explosive popularity, because like we've seen royalty before, but how often have we seen queer royalty in film and TV? Like I can't even name one example, and maybe I'm not the best person to be naming examples, but so
For me, it's kind of interesting how like Wilhelm and they both are generally like all the young, like I don't want, they're not like kids, but they're really young, but they're
Young
all
adults.
really treated as adults. Even at a young age, and that's not something you see a lot in Hollywood and stuff. Like people often, even if you're an adult, treat you like a child. But here, like in Scandinavian stories, they're often like it portrays like the Scandinavian mindset, and like shows like that the responsibilities that are put on you, the trust that's put on you, and the community that's important. Like it's not individualism, it's socialism. You do what you do for everyone else, and especially if you're a public figure. That's why his mom is so like, you need to stop thinking about yourself all the time, because there's something bigger here. And she's had to go through her whole life thinking about everyone else, because she's a public figure and nothing else. Like, they don't have any other powers. They're just public figures. And that's so important for the community of the country, that they sort of hold back and have to act more adult than they maybe should have to, or I don't know. I think that's like a really big difference I see from media that comes from Hollywood or even Asian countries. Like it's I just feel like in Scandinavia they are more of like treating them as adults.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting point. And it kind of made me think of one of the things that I think this series has really been praised for, which you were talking about, how like a lot of the times in Western media, even if someone is an adult, they get treated kind of childlike. But when it comes to like casting in Western media, they have this like habit of casting 30-year-olds as like high school students. And I think one of the things that made Young Royals really enticing was the fact that, yes, they're adults, but they're young adults. Like, I think Edvin was like 18 when he booked the role or something like that. And so they are casting people. I think Omar, who plays Simone's a little bit older, but they look like the age they're supposed to be playing. And you know, you've watched videos, I've watched videos of them talking like with the makeup and stylist department, of them very purposefully like doing minimal makeup and letting people have acne and you know, doing these things that make them look like real teenagers, and kind of real teenagers existing in a real school setting. Like, even royalty has acne because he's a teenager, and like that's just natural, you know. So I think that's one of the things that the show has gotten a lot of praise for, and one of the things that makes it stand out from other Western teen media, which often feels very artificial, because they want you to believe that like a 35-year-old man is playing an 18-year-old, and it's just like not realistic, you know.
And everyone has perfect makeup, and it's
so
I like Young Royals for me was it became like a comfort show. I just like, in the BL sphere, I don't have a lot of shows that are in like or close to my own language, and I've grown up watching Swedish shows. Like, we got a lot of like children's shows from Sweden, so I'm used to like listening to Swedish. So for me, watching it in Swedish, it was just like natural, and it was so easy to watch. And it's one of those, like what I said with Heartstopper too, that like I never knew that I would care so much about like students. Like they're basically children to me. They're children.
I mean,
but
I think they're supposed to be 16 or so in the series, so you know, it feels different from the typical like high school setting that I think we've gotten used to in BL, which I think might help, and also probably helped with Heartstopper. But yeah, they are still like it's a high school queer romance, so you know, it's not something that you necessarily would think would hit, but I think the characters are so well written that like you empathize with them. Like Wilhelm, my man, his poor anxiety ridden, like it just like resonates in your soul, and you just like want to like protect them, I feel like. And they just did such a good job of writing characters that make you feel for them, even if you can't necessarily relate to what they're experiencing as high schoolers or as royalty.
I think you can really relate to Wilhelm in the fact that he's sort of when the story starts, he's a boy that is just not taking any responsibilities. He's just like letting life go. Like he's tired of listening to all the adults in his life. He just wants to like fuck off and do whatever he wants to do, which is a very childish way of thinking. And his whole thing, like even with the video comes out and his mom says that, well, like you need to say that that's not you. Like you need to do this, you need to do this. And he just goes along with it. And it's still very childish to me because he's not taking responsibilities for his own actions, which he doesn't start doing until the end of season 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's gone from this person who had no real care about anything in the world, and like, you know, especially because before his brother passed away,
he was the second son. He wasn't going to have anything.
He didn't expect to have any responsibility, so he was just kind of like there to take advantage of the wealth and, you know, kind of exist as a public figure and whatever that meant for him. Then his brother passes away and he becomes the crown prince, and he kind of goes through this arc of needing to take responsibility, but it's like, what do you take responsibility for? Where his mother wants him to kind of step up and take responsibility as the crown prince and protect that image, while he's fighting with taking responsibility of his feelings for Simone, and kind of where does he prioritize that in his life and who he is as royalty. And that moment in the end of season 2 where he kind of like makes that decision to take responsibility for himself and his relationship as opposed to what his parents expected. It's just like so gratifying because we've been on that whole journey with him, and it's just like
and then you have like Simon, who is very responsible. Like he's practically an adult already. Like he's taking care of his sister, he's basically like helping his mother out. Like he's had his whole life situation is so different that he's already at that like adult space. And it's kind of they're in two different places in life, and it's more that than the wealth gap. Like I don't think like the wealth gap has a lot to say in this story. It's more like but just that their responsibilities in life and their like adulthood is in a different stages when they start.
Yeah, like Wilhelm is used to being able to be selfish, so he doesn't think when he wants to ask Simone to keep their relationship a secret, or he doesn't think when he comes out and says that it wasn't him in the video, because he's used to not having to think about someone else in that capacity and be selfish and think about himself and his image, whereas like you said, Simone is used to taking care of his sister, his mom, so he's, you know, someone who's always thinking about the other people in his life that he loves and cares for and how things impact them. So, you know, I do think, which is interesting because, you know, you were talking about how the culture is really about doing things for the community and putting yourself aside, but Wilhelm is really this like selfish person up until the end of season 2, and like him kind of going through that arc is really interesting. So yeah.
Can I say one thing that disappointed me a little bit? The sister of Simon and the
August.
No.
Oof.
That the sister and the other girl didn't.
Oh, Felice.
They didn't get together.
Yeah.
Like I was getting like major lesbian vibes from them,
Okay.
and it never happened. And I was so
And then she ended up with fucking
disappointed.
August.
August is a terrible character.
Yeah,
August is
much
like-
in line with Artet.
Yeah.
Literally. Oh my god. But yeah, no, I could definitely see that, and it was so like frustrating to watch her like become infatuated with August in the second season and shit like that. God, August is such a like a he's a really good villain character because he's insufferable. He is insufferable. Like, oh my god. There's not a single redeeming quality about that man. And the actor is incredible. I don't know what his name is. But he's like so good at portraying that, and like, oh my god. It was so frustrating to watch Sarah fall in love with him in season 2. And like him trying to like basically buy her feelings by like buying the horse and all that stuff. Like, oh, he's like a grade A manipulator, basically, like trying to manipulate her to care for him, and it's just like, oh, he's horrible.
I never got, like, I didn't see the point of them doing the August Sarah thing. I didn't. I was really invested in the whole lesbian vibes that were going on there. Like, they had something and they didn't grab it.
Yeah. And they kind of like gave us a little bite of the other girl in the friend group being in love with her best friend. I'm curious if they'll expand on that in season 3 and kind of make it a bigger plot point. But yeah, I do see how Sarah and Felice could have been like the perfect romance arc.
So good.
Yeah. Missed opportunity there.
Very.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm curious because I think season 2, I'm not gonna like, I think in general people liked it, but I do think a lot of people struggled with like how little hope it felt like there was for like the majority of the season, like the second season. Like that shit was hard to watch. Like the first 3 or 4 episodes were just like so painful, and I think a lot of people struggle with because the show is so short, only 6 episodes a season. You kind of get to the point where you're like, are we going to get any happy moments? Which, you know, I think it kind of plays into the show is set up in a seasonal format. So I think they were thinking of the bigger picture overall, as opposed to like each season having its own story. But I know like,
needed to grow. Like the dude needed to grow, and he needed to feel it. Like, you don't just go past whatever. Like, he's caught in this whole web of what his mom says he has to do and not knowing how to be his own person, and something needed to like kick him out of it. And that's what the like side romance quest thing. And like, you can't hate on the guy that Simon was dating because he's like a cutie. Like,
he didn't do anything wrong, but every scene I was like, go away. Go away, you're not meant to be. He did nothing.
He was so nice. Marcus, he's like the perfect boyfriend. Literally.
Yeah, if anything, like, Simone was in the wrong, because he really just used him as a rebound. But I was the same as Kayla. Like, every time he was on the screen, I was like, get out of here, Marcus. No one invited you. Like, yeah. No, I honestly forgot that Marcus was part of the second season arc. I forgot that Simone had, like, a whole other love interest there. Yeah, but... And then there was, like, the whole... Felice and Wilhelm hooking up thing, which was interesting, but
where did that come from? It made absolutely no sense.
It was honestly just Wilhelm needing someone to I think he just needed like affection, and so he was getting that comfort from Felice, and it just kind of like developed into something, and I feel like they both knew it was wrong immediately, basically. But yeah, I think he was just like kind of seeking comfort in any way, and like because Simone was avoiding him at that point, he turned to Felice. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited. I think it's in a good place for season 3. I'm excited to see how they're gonna wrap up the story. I really appreciate when shows go into a season knowing it's going to be the final season, because I feel like they're going to wrap it up in a way that does it justice, and we don't have to worry about like a cliffhanger and then cancellation type situation.
I do feel like they had a plan with these shows, and they're following the plan.
I agree. Yeah. So I think it'll be wrapped up well, and I'm really excited to see. Like production just began in April, and apparently the season will premiere in late 2023. So I guess we'll get to see how everything wraps up by the end of this year. But overall,
I'm excited for it.
It's a really good show. It's a really, really good show. It's really solid media in general. Like, I think even people that, it's definitely one of those ones, I think, that it kind of teeters on the line of BL versus queer media. Yeah. But I think it's a show that anyone will enjoy. And it's with it being on Netflix, I think it's why it's gotten so much global popularity. But it's just, like, generally good television. So, yeah. All right. Yeah. Do we want to give our ratings out of 5 and then wrap it up?
Yeah. I recommend it to anyone that enjoys BL. Like, I will always give it a 5. I think it's such a good show. Like, in general, like, it does have some issues, but it's in general great, and you will not be disappointed if you watch it.
Yeah. Kayla?
Yeah. I would definitely give it a 5 because there isn't really anything that I didn't like about it. Like, even the stuff with August, I was like, okay, fine. Like, that's his character. He's just like a weirdo. Someone who's very jealous. Let me clarify. He's someone who's very jealous that Wilhelm has all of this power and esteem and doesn't want to be part of it.
That he doesn't want it,
Yeah, like even that for his character, I felt like made sense. And I just love all the characters in this show. Like, I really loved Felice. I really loved the sister. They're all really good at acting. Like, there are no holes in this show in season 1 or 2. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it wraps up in season 3.
Yeah. I would give it a 5. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think you guys covered it. It's just top tier media. Like, if you haven't watched it, 100%, I think, give it a chance. Even if it doesn't sound like something that would be in your realm typically. I think it's one of those shows that just, like, pulls you in no matter what. Yeah, it's just really good media. So, yeah. I would recommend. 10 out of 10. 5 out of 5, I guess, would recommend. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so that is it for our review of Young Royals. If you're watching this on Patreon when it comes out, let us know in the comments on Patreon, or chat with us over in the Discord server and the Patreon channels, and let us know what you think of the series, your likes, dislikes, all that good stuff. And if you're watching this later when it comes out on YouTube, we do let our patrons vote typically on which shows we review, and they typically get access to them a month before the general public. So if that's something you're interested in, choosing what we review next, you can check out our Patreon at the Lovecaster tier and up and get access to help pick our reviews and get early access to watching them before the general public. So our Patreon link is down in the description always. Yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you guys in the next review. Bye.
Bye.